tonight we're going to have Dale Gent speak. He's a developer who has worked on open source projects, more specifically for what we're interested in. He's worked on N.I.N.A, which you've heard me guys talk about so much, you're probably sick of it, but something really cool. It's an open source project, and Dale likes to support many open source projects, but that's one he's worked on primarily. I know he's worked on an SBIG driver, but done other driver work. In his real life, sounds like he works in database centers and big server type deployments, but he also enjoys scuba diving and daytime photography. And I'm going to let him just take off right now. And thanks so much for coming. We're really excited to hear what you have to share.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on tonight. And hello to everyone out there. Michael pretty much filled you in on who I am. I live up in the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm one of the contributors, not the founder, but one of the contributors to the N.I.N.A open source astrophotography project. And I think I did a little research, and you guys are a bit familiar with it. I think I saw one presentation where you may have gone over Advanced Sequencer, right?
Yeah, I did that a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So with that in mind, I wanted to I try to avoid droning on about stuff you guys already covered on your own, and basically telling things you already knew. So the way I structured this talk tonight is basically, if you're not familiar with open source projects or the N.I.N.A open source project as it is, this is a little primer on that, and just familiarizing on how it's structured and how it works, as well as a little bit about the current direction of N.I.N.A, which I take it you've already had a preview of with the Advanced Sequencer, formerly called Sequencer 2, now called Advanced Sequencer. And then I wanted to make the actual presentation just a small part of tonight, and have the balance of the time kind of like an office hours type format Q&A session and discussion about any questions you might have about N.I.N.A itself, open source software, open source and astrophotography, anything topical like that. I guess with that, I can take my presentation. Hey, bud. Hold on a second. His son just got out of that.
Yeah. Hey,
yes.
Chris,
Hello.
Can you set it so he can share? Is Chris around?
Let's see. Yeah.
Let me do that for you.
I think I can do it now. I think
okay.
I can do it now.
Great.
Let me share my screen. All right. Can you see that?
Yeah, that looks great.
Oh, great. Awesome. All right. So, whoops. So some background on N.I.N.A's origins. The project founder is Stefan Berg, and online he's known as Bjorn. He started it about 4 years ago from scratch. It was not born out of a different project or anything like that. And he originally called it Astrophotography Buddy because he was short on names, and but he was new to astrophotography himself. But as a software engineer, he kind of the other software that's out there kind of left him thinking, well, what if I kind of remake a sequencing program in my own vision and try to give it a modern look and feel? And so that's how that was the genesis of the project. So a clean, concise UI, and it's built on top of modern or current programming frameworks. It's actually, if you are a programmer or a computer person, if you know C# or .NET, it's a C# .NET app. And he wanted it to be open source because aside from things like Ekios, there's really not much else out there in the world in terms of open source for astrophotography sequencing apps. There's plenty of supporting software. Our favorite, OpenPhD, PhD 2 is open source, and there are other things as well. But that can be kind of thought as supporting software, whereas a sequencer is the one that ties all the support software together. And then he changed the name to N.I.N.A shortly thereafter. So that's just a little bit background. The project is very it's semi-democratic. So we do follow the primary open source kind of ethos of open collaboration and open development, and kind of like single contributors working towards a group goal. If you care about open source licenses, it's licensed under the Mozilla public license. And Stefan's role as founder is kind of like a benevolent dictator. And this is actually a term used in the open source community, where you still need someone to kind of keep the reins on the project and keep things focused and give the final yes or no on something. If you're familiar with the open source world, Linus Torvalds of Linux is kind of like a benevolent dictator. Nothing really big happens in Linux until it passes through his hands. So Stefan's role is similar in that way. And then as an individual contributor, which anyone can be, you just show up and say, hey, I want to hack on this code and I want to be a contributor. And we're like, great, you need help. And so you kind of take your own initiative as contributors and kind of find your own niche area to work in, or areas. And we do all our collaboration online in real time on our Discord chat server. And all the code is open. It's open for viewing and use, and filing bug issues and stuff like that against on Bitbucket. And we try to stress this to everybody, it's a hobby right now. It's not a job. So don't kill yourself over it. You're not getting a paycheck for it. So please don't burn yourself out, and enjoy it. So that's pretty much how the N.I.N.A N.I.N.A as a project is governed, and how we kind of like just day-to-day conduct ourselves. It's fairly chilled and relaxed. And then as far as the app itself goes, the release structure. I'm sorry. And are there any questions so far, or anything someone wanted to ask?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat window. But from Roland, we have a question. How many contributors are there?
Oh, how many contributors are there? Oh gosh, that's a good question. I would say there's probably, if I can just pop open this, there's probably about 4 active contributors. Like you could see contributions from them on a monthly basis or a weekly basis. But I say in the combined over time, there's probably about I'd say 10 to 12. So 10 to 12 people. This is basically working in their spare time after their day job. No one does this full time. Have worked over the past 4 years to make the app what it is today. And we always welcome contributors and people who can help in any role, testers and documentation writers. And so you don't necessarily need to know how to code to help out. But we can get into that later. Does that answer your question? Okay. Cool. I got my chat window open now, so I can now follow along with that. All right. So release structure. As a piece of software, it's organic. It's constantly, it's actively developed, and so in accordance to that, we kind of keep a classic, stable, and nightly release train. And so once we feel, basically the 10,000 foot view is that once we feel that a nightly is well baked and tested and stuff like that, it becomes the new stable, superseding the previous stable version, and then we begin a new nightly release that all the development goes into. And then that stable release is just bug fixes. So it doesn't get any new features or major overhauls. It just gets bug fixes. It's stable. And no software is perfect. Bugs are found, and those get addressed. Whoops, I'm sorry. In the form of hot fixes. So so the current stable is 1.10. Its current hotfix levels 2, so 1.10 HF2 or hotfix level 2 is the current stable release. The next one will be hotfix 3, and the current nightly is 1.11. So all the major new features and renovations and stuff like that go into 1.11. Eventually, at some point in the future, 1.11 will get beat on, beta tested, and then release candidate. And then eventually become the new stable, superseding 1.10, and then we'll start 1.12 as the next nightly. So, and people ask us a lot, when will the next nightly be ready? When can I expect it? The answer is it's ready when it's ready. Like I said, it's organic, and the actual development process itself is organic. People aren't on a time clock, and we don't sit down in meetings and chart things out by week. It's ready when it's ready. And of course, there's a major bug found in a stable release. We kind of, we will issue a hot fix right away. And so people who are actually actively using the stable release can have that bug fix. But it's a very organic thing. We kind of like sit around and say, hey, you feel this is ready to go yet? Yep. Okay, well, let's make nightly the new stable now. So that's kind of how releases go. So if you come in and ask, we can kind of give you maybe a feeling like, maybe about 2 more months or something like that, but we can never give you an exact date. And then because of all the changes that have gone on in the current nightly series 1.11 with the sequencer, it kind of doesn't make sense to talk about the old sequencer, or what we call the simple sequencer now. We're just kind of like looking towards the future at this point, because the advanced sequencer, which you had already have already given yourselves a preview of, is pretty much the future of N.I.N.A. So in the current sequencer, which is going to be called simple sequencer, will kind of stay the same on purpose. So from 1.0 to current 1.10, as any new application gets developed, you are kind of probing around as a developer, trying to figure out how people want to use your application and all the different ways they want to use it. And some of those ways very much either surprise or scare you. But you're taking all this in as users glom on and start to use it. And so the application's gone through the typical kind of maturation periods and redoing of things. We bulldozer this, we bulldozer over some internals and then remake them because we figured out, a better way to do it or something like that. And as all this is going on over the past several releases, over the past 4 years, we're kind of like, well, what do we want N.I.N.A to be as an application? As users and developers of it, what do we want N.I.N.A to be? And so we're forming this vision as things go on, and taking in, that, and this vision is being informed by what users are telling us they want to do with it. So, it's a typical kind of thing where you started out wanting to have something simple and effective, but it's turned into a big ball of functionality, right? So how do you facilitate that? So that's been up to now. And so all this information has culminated in, the introduction of advanced sequencer. And we see that users want flexibility and ease of use. So how do you do that? Because those are two diabolically opposed concepts a lot of the time. So we think that we've hit upon a solution with this by having both what we call the advanced sequencer, which is new, and the simple sequencer, which is the old interface, where I just want to throw in a couple, in number of exposures on each filter, press go and have it rip along and do a meridian flip reliably and autofocus every so often. And that's it. I don't need anything more, fancier than that. I don't have a dome to control. I don't have a safety monitor device. I don't, I don't have any of this complex other stuff that other people need. That's what the simple sequencer is aimed at. But with the advanced sequencer, everybody who came along and said, I would really like N.I.N.A to be able to image only when it's raining in Bangkok on a Tuesday, and when the sun is exactly 35.8 degrees below the horizon, and stuff like this. So we kept getting these wishes like that. And it's like, well, how do we facilitate this? And we realized that, I'll get into this in a second. Advanced sequencer was the solution to this. So the other thing that this adds is a plugin interface, which is new. So the advanced sequencer you can write plugins for, and if you have some crazy functionality, you can pluginize it and plug it in without having to wait for it to actually be baked into the app. And with simple sequencer, it's going to stay as is. It's built on top of the advanced sequencer's engine, but feature-wise, it'll stay as is. It needs to stay simple. So, we've already got requests like, could you add the ability to run a script at the end or something like that? And we had to draw a line. It's like, no, that's advanced sequencer level stuff. So if you want to do that, the ability is there, but you have to use advanced sequencer. We want to keep simple sequencer simple. So I gave you a little preview of why advanced sequencer. Everybody wanted all this kind of competing and different functionality. And while you could do that, how do you organize it in an interface that makes it easy to use, right? So that's functionality is easy. How do you use it is kind of like often the hard question. So, and so we did, a lot of discussion about this, and so we came up with the design that you saw as advanced sequencer, and I can show you more about it here later on if you want, but the other thing that prevented us from really adding cool features was the old sequencer was just one big hairball of code. It was monolithic, was what we, the term that's used in the programming world. It's monolithic hairball of code that, if you go in and tweaked one little corner of it, it could have a butterfly effect somewhere else that you never realized could happen. So we needed a modular, clean sheet design without all that baggage, compartmentalized code, so it can be maintainable, and all that functionality broke out into discrete interface components, which increases reliability. It's not just a monolithic interface like it was previously. It's now an engine that has an interface to it. It has multiple interfaces to it. In fact, the simple sequencer is an interface to it. It just shows the simple parts of it. So, and we hope it's a scalable engine as well at that, because we know what everybody wants today, but we don't know what people will want tomorrow. So we want something that we think will be able to accommodate tomorrow's unknown needs today. I guess I sound like an ad there or something, but that's the gist of advanced sequencer. And we're really proud of it. It's working out really well. People are popping up and saying, with little tweaks here and there, and we're refining it. Remember, it's in the nightly series, but the nightly series is an ongoing work of progress. So we're tweaking it, and by the time we're ready to make it stable, we hope to have the advanced sequencer in a more or less finalized form, and all we need to do from there on out is just plug in new functionality as people request it, or as people make new plugins for it. So that's advanced sequencer right now. And even looking farther ahead, there's still a lot of wants out there. So I will say that N.I.N.A's session suspension and recovery is not as advanced as other applications, and we know that. It hasn't been a focus just yet, but if clouds come in and invade your session for half an hour, we want to have a way to get back to work automagically. So looking at session recovery and stuff like that. But where can I get this? Where can you get this software? Nighttime-imaging.eu. I can put the URL up, but it's nighttime-imaging.eu. EU because Stefan is German, so hence the EU subdomain there, but or TLD there. But you can go there. It's in 32 and 64-bit flavors. We urge everybody to do 64-bit unless they have ASCOM drivers that are 32-bit only. That's the only reason why you want to use 32-bit. And the number of 32-bit ASCOM drivers out there is shrinking because we've actually, as a team, when we've come across an ASCOM driver that has issues or thank you. Oh yeah, I forgot I could type into chat there. We actually proactively reach out to vendors and help them improve their ASCOM drivers or their camera SDKs and stuff like that. And so we've actually gotten a bunch of formerly 32-bit only ASCOM drivers to also be 64-bit so that people can run a 64-bit imaging application on their PC. So, we believe in betterment of software for everybody, even if it's not our own software that we produce as a project. So, because if we have to interface with this software, we want it to be easy for us too. So, if it means spending a couple of emails back and forth with the vendor about an issue with their driver, then it's no skin off our back. We'll do it, and everybody gets to enjoy the improvement. So. Makes things better for everyone. Anyway, so a standards-based API. Now, standards-based can be anything. We have no solid vision of this yet, but we do want to have an API in N.I.N.A so that you can control it from your smartphone or iPad directly, or something like that, or other apps can interface with it. Since we added this new plugin feature for the sequencer, we want to have a plugin repository and developer community around that, so that people who don't necessarily want to get their hands deep into N.I.N.A can still create their own plugins, and users can go to this repository and download these plugins and plug them in and get this new functionality. We want to figure out a good way to encourage that. Further integration, third-party apps. There's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of things in astrophotography that require two or more apps talking to each other. So everything from plate solvers to focusing aids to other imaging apps and stuff like that, auto guiding stuff, things like that would be third-party apps. And kind of given the all-in-one vision of N.I.N.A, framing assistant, where where you start every imaging project. We want to improve the usability of that and make it so that coming up with an idea of what to image and then figuring out how you want to image it and then turning that into an actionable sequence. It all starts in the framing assistant. So improving that would be a very worthwhile thing. And then, of course, the typical stuff, just making the app better behind the scenes, under the covers, faster or better to maintain, easier to maintain, easier to use. We just had a thing go out tonight, an update go out tonight on the nightly that makes the default camera offset and gain values easier to use. No more parentheses getting in the way there. And of course, we always want to improve our documentation. But if you know anything about developers, coding and writing documentation is often not two things that go together. So, but if you're not a coder, but you maybe where you were an English minor or something like that, and you want to help out with the project. Documentation is also a good non-coding way to help out with the project. It is an acumen. Technical writing or documentation writing is a acumen unto itself, separate from coding. So if you are interested in the project and you want to help, but you're not a coder, this is, documentation is one great way to contribute, and you get equal acknowledgement for that too. Let's see. Oh, are there any thoughts about any thoughts of starting charging? Oh gosh, no. The software is open source, and the software is licensed over with an open source license that basically the source code has to be public in perpetuity. And the only way that license can change is a unanimous vote by the people who have contributed to that software. And you're basically never going to get a unanimous vote to close up the software and change the license. So as long as the source code is out there, someone, yourself or another developer or something like that, can continue to maintain N.I.N.A in perpetuity forever. So no, there is no closed source aspect. You can't even take the source code and make a copy of it to sell. That is against the license. So the licenses are chosen to follow the open source ethos, and closing of the source in any way is counter to that ethos. Any chance of N.I.N.A on Linux? .NET. So .NET Core is available on Linux, right? So N.I.N.A is a .NET standard app, and it also uses Windows Presentation Foundation as its UI framework, called the Windows and stuff like that. That's all WPF. And Microsoft has said that they're not porting WPF to non-Windows platforms, so you won't see it. So right now, it's a insurmountable mountain to get N.I.N.A on non-Windows platforms. However, there are some open source projects out there, open source to the rescue. There are some open source projects out there that are aimed at letting you replace WPF with a cross-platform windowing framework, which will allow that part to go onto other operating systems. And then the rest, if that can happen, then the .NET standard stuff in N.I.N.A would just need to be converted to .NET Core. And in theory, we have a cross-platform app. But if you're a developer of any kind, you can kind of get a picture of what kind of heavy lifting that involved, and it would be pretty substantial. So it would be a major effort and take a lot of time. But one day, and the ASCOM stuff would have to be left out and indie stuff incorporated. Exactly right. Yes, certainly. Now, the Windows ASCOM stuff would have to be left out, but we could also do Alpaca clients on non-Windows platforms. So it could be ASCOM, Alpaca, and Indie on Linux or Mac. That would be something that's way off in the future once we take a breather from anything major. So, but hey, if you're a developer who's familiar with doing that kind of stuff and you want to take that project under your wing, more power to you. That's what open source is about. So, I thought I'd mention something about Discord. Okay, well, so we get a lot of questions about Discord. N.I.N.A is a bit different from other applications and stuff in our world where, there's typically an email list or a web forum for community support and community, the community is defined by these things, right? So Discord is different. It's more like a chat system. It's a modernized chat system. It's very multimedia centric. And so if you think of it that way, it's easier to use. So we have chat rooms, topical chat rooms, autofocus, hardware issues, beginner issues, stuff like that, and just general chit chat rooms. You can search it. There's pinned topics of important info. And we have some bots that run on there that provide some cool things. So one cool thing that we have is N.I.N.A creates autofocus logs. Every autofocus run you do gets a log file that describes how it went. And recently, you can open these logs back up in N.I.N.A and review them with the nice graphical curve and stuff like that. But we also have this online thing on our Discord, where if you just drop the JSON file into a chat channel, the bot picks it up and renders the autofocus curve and tells you all about it. And if there's issues with it, it'll also give you advice like, oh, your step size is too small because the HFR difference between these sample points is way too low. So try increasing your step size between sample points and stuff like that. So it's a good way to visualize your autofocus configuration and the results you get from that. And uncover the telescope. Where's that? Oh,
sorry, bad joke, but
okay.
Anybody that's been doing this for a while has done that once in a while, which is, this isn't working. And then you realize, yeah, you dope, you've got to uncover the scope.
Oh, right. You left your lens cap on your camera, right?
Yeah, you just mentioned that it would give you messages that just occurred to me.
Yeah. So so it's I've left the cap on my do shield plenty of times before. Why am I not guiding? Is my camera broke? No, I left the cap on my guide scope. Kind of thing. So anyway, so there's stuff like that, and of course it is the N.I.N.A community is built around Discord. So you're welcome just to hang out, even if you're not a user, and talk and whatnot. So a lot. I just thought I have a special mention of this because it's kind of unique amongst astrophotography software projects and products to have this instead of a forum or email list. So I just thought I'd throw this in here just as an FYI. So with that, that's about all I wanted to cover in terms of slides and stuff like that. But I wanted to leave the balance of the time, however much longer we have, as questions or.
Dale, I have a question. Do you have any idea how much of an installed user base you have?
Oh gosh, I wish I did. That's a really good question. I couldn't even begin to estimate that because I honestly find users cropping up in the weirdest, in the most unexpected places, like in my own club here in Washington DC. It's someone will come up to me and say, "Oh, I've been using N.I.N.A for 3 months," and I never knew. So yeah, I honestly don't have an answer for that. And we don't collect those kinds of statistics. There's nothing in the app that says that phone's home or anything like that. So it's I would say it's conservatively I would say it's in the hundreds. Thousands of users sounds like a lot to me, so I don't think I'd be brash enough to claim that. But but I do know it is growing just from watching our Discord server. More people come in every day and ask questions and hang out. So and in just my own snooping online, on Stargazers Lounge or Cloudy Nights, I see more and more mentions of N.I.N.A pop up in people's signatures or in the little blurbs of info that they post with their finished images. So it's heartening to see, and you just know that people have taken interest in it.
So Dale, I have a couple of follow-up questions. One's very basic. You mentioned documentation.
Yeah.
For those of us that don't use it and are interested, is there any sort of basic, maybe even just a page that describes what to do?
Yes, there is. There's a quick start guide. So if you go to the main website, I think the URL was provided earlier here. I can cut and paste it again for.
Okay.
So, for some reason, my paste isn't working here. I guess I can't do that.
And this is going to sound like a stupid question because it is a stupid
question. There is a getting started guide. What I want to say is that on the documentation, there's a quick start guide that just gives you all the succinct information to get rolling. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then one follow-up question that's kind of a dumb question for those of us that used to code but no longer do.
Oh, okay.
I am assuming that you do require a C# compiler to code this and then make modifications.
Yeah. Microsoft Visual Studio Community 2019 is all you need. Okay. And there's a few plugins that we utilize, and those plugins are configured in a file in the source code repository that when you pull it down, it's there. And when you tell Visual Studio to open it, it'll read that and pull in those plugins. So it's you don't need to buy software in order to develop on it, and so Visual Studio Community 2019 is all you need.
Thank you.
Dale, I had a quick question.
Sure.
I've been trying to learn how to do multi-panel mosaics with a Falcon Rotator with Sequence Generator Pro, and it's SGP is just kind of daunting. Does N.I.N.A have that capability, and do you personally know whether it might be a little easier to set up?
Yeah. So definitely with Advanced Sequencer, that would be quite doable. If I can reshare my screen here, I have actually a let's see, where is it? My remote desktop screen. Here it is. Maximize that. Can people see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the current release of 1.11, and I have to move some of these windows out of my way here because they're blocking what I can see on N.I.N.A screen. So with 1.11, we can say, let's see, hips. Let's load up old N42 here. You can do that, and then what you would do is you would have in the advanced sequencer, you would have a template that has just the stuff you want to do. Like over here, I have a narrowband target, Rgb target, master dark run. But these are all pre-baked sequences for things, right? And so let me delete this. And these things up here are this is what I do before when I start all my sequences, and this is what I do after I finish all my sequences. So this is actually this is what I use operationally when I image. I cool the camera, send the focuser to a predetermined position, and unpark the scope. This area here would have all my targets in it, in the middle here. And then when all those targets are done, at the end of the sequence, I'd go through these things. I set some switches on my Pegasus to turn off my dew heaters or turn them down. I tell the camera to warm up, and I park the scope. So let me go back to the framing tool here and pull up Orion. So this is Orion as it would be seen through my camera, and focal length the scope. And so over here, what I would do is say, I want to make let's just say a 2-panel mosaic just to keep it nice and, whoops. Let's do vertical panels here. It's Orion. Do vertical panels with Orion, and then you want to rotate it a little bit, And then what you want to do is say add target to sequence. And so what it will do, and I want to do narrowband of it, okay? And so what it will do is you pick that template that you made. So I want to do a narrowband target. So I pick my narrowband template and I come over, it snaps me back over to the advanced sequencer. And now I've got two sequences. I've got M42 panel 1 and I've got M42 panel 2, my two panels. And so, but say you wanted to do panel 2 a little bit differently with rotation, you know, you just go in here and say, my rotation is 25 degrees here. It should match my panel 1 rotation, which is also 25 degrees, but I want to do it 33 degrees. Yeah, there you go. And that's all you would do, assuming that's what you're specifically asking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's just an example of how you would do that. Now,
Dale, quick question. Would it
Sure.
pick up that rotation from the framing assistant, or is that something you have to manually set?
well, I'm setting it right here in this field. The framing assistant here, just yeah, you're like the 25 degrees here. Is this how I framed it originally? Right.
Will that when you add that to the advanced sequencer as a target, it'll pick that up? Okay.
It'll pick that up. Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we now treat coordinates and rotation angle as part of as a unitary thing in the application. So it's not only just where you're pointing in the sky, it's also how you're looking at it. So we believe, you know, it's right ascension, declination, and rotation. So it's no longer this kind of like, you know, weird thing, you know, secondary thought off to the side. Rotation's part of it now. But in here, since, you know, each panel in a mosaic is done as its own kind of target sequence. Whoops. Then you can treat one, you're treating them as their own individual sequences, right? So given that, you can go in and change the rotation. Now, if you're doing it for some reason, if you configured it somehow to be one panel with lots of different exposures into it, you can say, so in this one, I'm doing in my instructions, which are done serially here, you know, I'm doing HA first and O3 and then S2. But say just for whatever reason, after I do HA, I want to rotate to a different rotation. Then I can go over here in my list of instructions and say, I want to take this rotator and I want to insert it between my HA and O3. And I want to say that I want it to be 33 degrees. So it'll do the HA block here, and then when that finishes, it'll drop down to this, rotate the rotator to 33 degrees, and then carry on with life doing O3 at 33 degree rotation. So you're basically just drag and dropping you know, functionality over here on the right into the instruction list. It's like it's literally like a shopping list of things to do, right? You just do it in order, bam, bam, bam. And then, as I think you guys covered in previous meetings, you know, you have your triggers up here, like you want to trigger on some condition, like you want to trigger a meridian flip when it's time to flip, or an autofocus after a temperature change of, in my case, 2 degrees, or an HFR increase after 10 samples. You know, and the HFR increase is 15%. I want to fire off another autofocus operation, or on filter change, you know, kind of thing. So I'm sorry, I'm neglecting the chat window here, and I haven't seen if anyone's typed anything up on it yet. Is a rotation requires a piece of hardware do? No, actually. Hold on a second. I lost my remote desktop window here. Where did it go? There it is. Okay. Can people still see my remote desktop?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Cool. So in the equipment list in N.I.N.A, there's the main equipment tab. There's the per piece.
I'm trying to find it.
Someone's
Okay.
dog
It's Ron.
got a treat there. So if you go to the equipment list and each piece of equipment's broken out, camera, filter wheel, yada, 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 you get down to the rotator part. There's a special rotator device called the manual rotator. And you connect it like any other piece of equipment, but it's not an actual piece of hardware, obviously. It's a software device. So what this works on is the basis of plate solves. Because we get a lot of information from a plate solve. We not only know where we're pointing in the sky, but we know the rotation of the sky. So when this rotator is connected, and what I could say in my at the start of my sequence here, at the beginning of the instructions, I can say I want to, I'm saying all this stuff right now. Wait for this time. Wait for astronomical dusk. Or the altitude is less. The altitude of the target is greater than or equal to 40 degrees. I want to unpark the scopes, slew to the RA and declination of the target. And then I want to center it. Now, this is where rotators come in. So if I go up to oops, the dock on my Mac is popping out here as I try to grab this bar. Here we go. So there's an instruction called center and rotate. And I can drop that there in place of the center operation. I can get rid of that center operation. What center and rotate does is, it does just that. But when you have the manual rotator connected, the centering process already does a plate solve. With the manual rotator connected, it allows the centering process to also determine the rotation of the sky. And if the rotation of the sky, as seen in the plate solve, does not match what you specify here for your target rotation, it'll pop up a window and say that you need to rotate your camera 18.5 degrees counterclockwise in order to get the degree of rotation that you specified for this target. And so you go over your camera and you rotate it, either by eye guesstimate, or maybe you have a manual rotator on your telescope that's actually graduated and has degree marks on it. And you come back and you hit the OK button on the window that pops up, and it'll do another plate solve to test to see if you're on, or if you still need to rotate it some more, or you over rotate it or something like that. And it'll keep popping up that window again until you're within the tolerance for the degree of rotation that you specified here. Now you might be thinking, well, gosh, like, do I have to get it down to like the 10th of the degree or something like that? Will I be standing there for 20 minutes trying to chase down a 0.001 degree difference? No. In the plate solving configuration of N.I.N.A, you can specify a rotation tolerance, and it's in degrees. So here I have it set to 3 degrees. So as long as I manually rotate within 3 degrees of what I specified, it'll be kosher with it, and we can carry on.
And Dale, what would you set it for if you had an actual mechanical rotator? Could you lower it down to like 1 degree?
Yeah, it's basically just kind of your own judgment call on that. I mean, it's basically, you're like, oh well, I have a mechanical rotator, and I can easily get it to within 1 degree of what I want. So you can set your tolerance down to whatever that. It's kind of like how steady is your hand, how good is your manual rotator, hardware rotator, whatever kind of thing. So it's pretty much your judgment call on that. It's no hard rule.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Dale, I have a follow-up question that's, I think, related to this.
Yeah.
Where does your image data come from for the framing assistant? Is that Deep Sky Survey?
Oh, we have a multitude of sources now. So up here in the framing assistant, there's another drop-down image source. And so we have the NASA Sky Survey, a whole bunch of sky surveys here. ESO, STSCI, the new one's HIPS too. HIPS, the issue with these image servers is that they are notoriously slow. And especially when you're requesting an ever larger field of view from the server, like right here, I'm requesting a 5.72 degrees field of view. Typically with these image servers, the larger the field of view, the slower it takes. Like NASA, the NASA one can seem like it's broken sometimes because it just takes forever to return you an image. But we found recently the HIPS2 server, which is, I think, ran by the Simbad group out of France. It's actually reasonably quick. It's not like instant return, but it's, you know, you don't need to go make a cup of coffee while it returns an image to you. So, so like, you know, I can type in a, you know, M101 here, and let me get it to autocomplete and load an image, and hopefully it will return one without too much delay here. But you can also load in your own image. So if you select the image sources file, there we go. So that wasn't too bad. You know, here's a two-pane view of 5.72 degree of view of M101. You can set your image sources file. You can load an image. So I can go to my library here and say, you know, this is a file here that I took a couple months ago of Bode's Galaxy. XIF file. N.I.N.A saves as XISF TIFF or FITS. I save as compressed XISF because I have a QHY 600 and I don't like the 120 megabyte RAW images. He's compressed down to about 60 megabytes. So I just selected that file and it'll plate solve it. And here's my, whoops. Here's my frame plate solved. So this is a good way to, you know, if you ran a target and you forgot to save it or something like that, and you want to image it again, but you want the same rotation and RA and declination that you did your previous run at, this is a way to recover that, because what it does is when you load an image in, N.I.N.A will plate solve it, get that information, and populate the RA and dec fields with it here, and then that will transfer over to a sequence if you go down here and say, you know, add a target. So, so yeah, and of course for offline viewing, like you're out in the field, you don't have internet access or something like that. All those image server downloads are saved in a cache, and so you can just go through the list with what's in your cache and say load and load it back up. There's Cygnus. So
maybe you can convince the gentleman that runs AstroBin to let you use some of the images for this purpose.
AstroBin?
AstroBin.
Oh, AstroBin. Oh, AstroBin. Yeah, possibly.
Because it's very quick. I don't know what he's using for a back end, but
yeah,
it's nearly instantly.
Yeah, I can strike up a convo with him and see what's up. Yeah, certainly. I'm a subscriber of AstroBin myself because I know it's an open source project, and I you know, as well as working on open source, I like to support other projects as well. So yeah, certainly.
let me suggest something. I actually brought this up in one of our meetings just as a wild idea, but the person, I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but he put up a map, a heat map of the images that have been loaded up to Astrobin by coordinates for the sky.
Oh,
So you could see, I don't know, Michael might have a link to that he could send to you, but the thought was that there may be enough data now loaded up to Astrobin for some enterprising soul, maybe that's a masochist, to run a pretty heavy duty processing that would be required, but to turn that into an all sky mosaic. And if you have to talk to the guy, you might mention that, because that would be probably pretty stunning. The sky surveys, of course, are taken with instruments that greatly exceed our own, but there are multiple instances for like deep sky survey where you have things like reflection from the secondary of the scope that took it. And honestly, I'm ignorant. I don't know what they took it with. And then there's some instances that I've seen where I don't know why this is, and maybe somebody in the club that's more knowledgeable than me can comment on this, but there is some fairly weak, I don't know what to call it, depth to deep sky survey, especially for fainter hydrogen alpha objects, things like that that I've run across, where you can just barely see it if you blow the contrast way out, but nowhere near as clear as you could, for example, finding that target on Astrobin or something like that. But anyway, it's a thought.
Yeah, there are actually, that would be, I mean, the amount of material in Astrobin would probably facilitate creating such a, a very well detailed and probably beautiful sky survey, amateur sky survey. There is.
I posted that link on the chat if anyone's curious. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was just saying that there's another Discord community. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the site called Reddit, but there's an astrophotography community there, and they have their own Discord channel, and they've started up a project called Project Patchwork, which is currently I think it's like I forget how many degrees, but it's basically it's all user submitted images that are patched together in a band that covers the Milky Way. Some number of degrees, plus and minus the galactic plane, and so so there are kind of like similar initiatives out there in bits and pieces. So yeah, but maybe with all the material that's on Astrobin, such a sky survey would be pretty interesting to do. I think the software exists out there probably to stitch all that together. It's just the time and the effort needed to do all that is what's needed.
I had a quick question. So what would be kind of the nature of the plugins? How would they, what kind of functionality would be in the scope of the plugins?
Oh gosh. So yeah, this is something that we had no, when we decided, hey, a plugin system would be great, we didn't really have any kind of vision for it. We just thought like, make it and they will come kind of thing. But some interesting stuff has popped up already. So the plugin can be any kind of piece of functionality here on the side. It could be an instruction and a sequence. It could be a loop condition. So down here I have my loop conditions, like loop until altitude, or loop until time. Like I always loop until astronomical dawn. I don't do specific time cutoffs anymore. I just say never. The sun is 16 degrees below the horizon, I want to stop imaging, or when it's astronomical dawn, I want to stop imaging.
So
it can be so it can be any kind of this functionality: triggers, loop conditions, instructions. One guy has already come up with a GNS, a plugin for Goodnight System. So nice. that's a plugin that will feed info into the GNS process running on your imaging computer and then shoot it over to your phone, right? I think one guy is working on a plugin, a trigger plugin that triggers on some sort of VO event from the LIGO observatory. So it'll sit there and monitor for VO events from the LIGO observatory project, the gravitational wave thing. And so when that project's VO event server fires off an event, listeners for it, this plugin would be one of those listeners, would take that information and start a sequence on it. So the telescope,
that's kind of dialing in, because a couple of us here have written schedulers that we feed other programs that just handle the hardware with. So could you, in essence, every time it was time to start a new target, you could have a plugin that would go out and pull target info from something else that's doing all the scheduling for the night? And
yes.
Okay.
I think in theory that should be doable.
Gotcha.
In practice, of course, maybe we need to put in some more glue there for you to do something specifically like that.
Okay. No, that's just curious. That's really exciting. We don't get too deep into it, but yeah, that's cool.
But that is the direction that we want to mature it, and it's kind of one of those things of like, create the foundation of it, see how people want to use it, and then build upon it, right? Not everything's going to be in there from day one. So I'm working on a plugin right now. It's for my own amusement. A plugin for IFTTT, if you're familiar with what that is. If this, then that.
Okay. Okay. Could do, yeah.
It's an online service where you can take all the IoT things in your house, like your Sonos speakers and your Ring doorbell and your smart fridge that alerts you when the door's open too long or something like that. Anyway, you can tie it all into the system, and it's an automation framework that's online. So I'm making an IFTT plugin in N.I.N.A that, when you can say that when your sequence finishes, it plays a nice piece of music over your Sonos speaker system in your house, or it opens your garage door.
So N.I.N.A can actually make you coffee when it's done in the morning.
So if you have an IoT coffee maker, when you switch filters, you can have it start a new cup of coffee or heat your water or something like that. And that's the kind of that's exactly the kind of whimsical, and there probably can be very serious applications for it, because it is an automation framework, for doing these kinds of things. But
Dale, related to what you just mentioned about folks using LIGO data, I do not know if they publish this, but I assume that they do. And somebody here might know what the, for lack of a better word, go look at it, notification system is for global astronomers. But if another potential source of data for starting a sequence automatically might be Assassin, the survey for supernova.
Oh, of course,
somebody might like that. If it's actually, I do not know if they have like an automated, for lack of a better word, coordinate publishing that goes on with that project. But
I have superficial knowledge of all these events servers, and so nothing in depth and nothing direct in terms of experience. But what I gather is that they are all based around this system called VO events. VO events. And I know ACP, if you're familiar with ACP, Bob Denny's project at DC3 Dreams, can act upon VO events and schedule a session. So VO events do seem to be some sort of, I don't know if it's a standard, but it's at least an ad hoc standard amongst various projects out there, professional astronomy projects out there for disseminating event information in real time. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, well, that's kind of the power of the open source project. There's no agenda or bills to pay, so you can sort of start to do some really exciting things without a time scale. So I think, just in 4 years, what the project has reached is pretty amazing.
I'm amazed.
Any other kind of follow-up questions? I think we've taken, we had an amazing amount of time. Dale's been very generous with the time, and
Oh, I
I'm
can
sure-
sit here all night. I can sit here all night if you want.
well, we might have to
I've got-
transition to
I've- I've
Discord
got-
if you want, and then we can keep it going.
Yeah,
But any other comments or
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah, Ron here. I have a comment and a question. First, Dale, this is just incredible. If I were wanting to change the way I do imaging control, this is no question what I would do. I love everything about what I've seen. I'm going to start playing with it. I'm an ACP user now, and yeah, the DO events do work, but when they intrude on a night, they're startling. You're doing something, and all of a sudden the scope goes off, and your first instinct is, "Holy crap, what's happened?"
Right.
But
This isn't
the
a
question I
Meridian flip.
have, yeah. The question I have is related to like dome control and dome slaving.
Yeah.
Are those things internal to N.I.N.A, or do you go outside to do that?
It's
Like
it's whatever is available through a dome ASCOM driver at the moment.
Okay.
So there's no hooks or anything like that in the app right now regarding domes for interacting with a dome through anything but its ASCOM driver. So if you have a dome system, yeah, if you have a dome system that requires some sort of special control mechanism that's not available through its ASCOM driver, N.I.N.A can accommodate that now. But if you do have a full-featured ASCOM driver for your dome, then running that should be no problem.
Right. I mean, that was just meaning the computation part of you're pointing here and what sort of rotation do you need?
Right. That part is that kind of smarts is done in N.I.N.A. Certainly.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's let me qualify that a little bit though. It's the dome support is rather new, and as amateurs, not all of us had domes, and one of the contributors suddenly grew a dome overnight and coded the dome support in. So we've been working with other N.I.N.A users who do happen to have domes, and they primarily are of the next dome type of system. But if you have a different type of system and you try it out and you notice some quirks or something like that, then let us know, because the more exposure we get to other dome systems, and if you know anything about ASCOM drivers and especially dome systems, they're all little snowflakes. They all act just a little bit differently from each other, and you gotta you have all these kind of special cases. So if you give it a run one night and your dome acts a little funky with it, let us know.
I will. I use the next dome for sure, and the Visual Basic part. When at one point I compiled the ASCOM driver for that. For the next dome part, and so then they got a real software person to do the job, and stuff's real robust now. But I'm going to definitely play with this. This is beautiful, Dale. Thank you.
Well, you're in luck. You're in luck. I guess you can call the next dome driver and system kind of like the model that the dome support's been developed against. All I know is that you need the latest firmware or something like that. And you should be good to go. So give it a shot.
Thanks.
So Dale, I had a question too. Basically, so many people here are a little overwhelmed with trying to get something like this up and running.
Right.
So I was looking to see if there was any instructional videos that you could reference to. I mean, I look on YouTube and I find this guy called Visible Dark. Visible Dark, and I didn't know if there was anybody or any kind of YouTube video or channel that you would recommend for getting things getting off the ground.
So there we go. I think I just got muted or something.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. So there are a bunch of people out there who've done some pretty good series of videos or one-off videos on various aspects of N.I.N.A. One of them, I mean, you can go on YouTube and kind of search N.I.N.A astrophotography. But two in particular come immediately to mind. There's a guy who goes by the name of AK Astro. That's AK as in Alaska, Astro, and that's that's Aaron Dalton. He images from literally the middle of nowhere, Western Alaska, on the Yukon River. So, and he makes a series of videos that are really informative and really geared towards the beginner with N.I.N.A. And so that's AK Astro or Alaska Astro. And there is, let me just see if I can bring some of these up right now. There's a contributor called Cuiv, C-U-I-V. He's French, the Lazy Geek, and I'll put his YouTube channel into chat here.
Okay, I found him.
Yeah. So he has a lot of really informative videos, especially on the autofocus system, because he actually wrote it. So so if there's any authoritative source on the theory behind N.I.N.A's autofocusing and stuff like that, it's him. But he has a lot of other videos as well, and also just for astronomy in general. But they all tend to feature N.I.N.A in some way or its insight. And let me see if I can find AK Astro here. Alaska Astro, I think, is Alaska. Is this it? Yeah, Alaskan Astro. That's what it is. Oh, yeah. That video autoplayed and just blasted my ears out. So there we go.
Oops.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I'll vouch for both of those. They're both great channels.
Yeah.
They're
So auto playing videos aside with loud music, both are good.
Yeah, sorry about that. He has really jazzy video or music coming in on his page.
Yeah. So I wasn't aware of that, but there you go. And if you want to get on the nightly train, the in development build, you don't have, if advanced sequencer here scares you, like you see all this and you're just like, oh my God, that's just so much stuff. How am I ever gonna how am I ever gonna make my first frame with all this kind of stuff in the way? Don't despair. The old sequencer, we now call simple sequencer, lives on here in 1.11, and it's actually re-implemented on top of advanced sequencer, so it has all that code reliability that we built into it, but it has the UI and the functionality that you would find in 1.10 and earlier. So oh, and by the way, number one question we get asked by users moving to the advanced sequencer is, why is it in advanced sequencer you can never tell me how much time is left on my sequence? And we're like, well, it's not that we can't, it's just we can't reliably tell you how much time is left on your, because with advanced sequencer, you've got all this stuff going on over here. You got triggers, and you've got weights, and you've got all this other stuff. It's impossible for me to tell you how long this would actually take. And any estimate would be misleading. So it's better just to not give it at all. And what we tell people is, I think from what I gather over helping users and stuff like that, is that a lot of people tend to think like, I want to image from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. How many exposures is that, right? And they calculate out, like, I'm doing 5-minute exposures, and 5 divided by, or however many hours divided by how many minutes and stuff like that. And they calculate it off. with advanced sequencer, we just say we do it just here. We start and we say wait until this. Whoops, let me put that back here. We wait until dusk. We start at dusk, or when our target altitude is above 40 degrees, whichever comes first, or something like that. Or it has to be dusk, and then the target altitude has to be above 40 degrees, and then and then do all your stuff, and then everything is done inside a loop. So we say loop until the target altitude is less than 40 degrees, or it's astronomical dawn, whichever comes first. So we encourage people to not try to like plot out how many exposures they're going to do or anything like that. We just say, well, just do it naturally. Like, say I want my start time to be this, or my target is above 40 degrees or 35 degrees, and think of it that way. Don't think in terms of just units of a block of time.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. Like if you're doing RGB and you have 3 hours, there's a loop condition where you can say loop for a period of time.
Yeah, loop for 3 hours.
And just tell it to do 1 million exposures, and then just let it run, and it'll truncate when it hits that time and then move to the next filter. So you don't even need to figure out how many exposures it is. It's really, as you say, much more natural to work just in time units.
And one other cool thing is that we have we all live in places that have trees.
Yes.
And houses and obstructions and stuff like that all around us. And I've loaded up a profile here that does not have it loaded, but I'll load it up. Where did I put it? We've added the ability to input a custom horizon. So I have my horizon file here, which is actually just a simply formatted text file. I'll show you the format if you're curious. And now over here, you can see how terrible my imaging from home is. In the display here, you see the horizon and how the target is going to, this light gray area is obstruction, trees, house, stuff like that. And you can see that if I'm imaging M42, so Orion is only becomes visible from my spot in the yard where I image from, right when it's basically at its peak. I don't want to start imaging over here because I'll just be imaging through my tree. So what I can do is say I can go over here and loop while altitude above horizon in my conditions. Actually, it's a condition. And so I can get rid of this other stuff, or I can leave time or something like that. But I can get rid of this other stuff, and I say I want to loop and image this image, this object while I'm above the horizon that I defined.
Dale, I guess you guys were talking about certain amount of time and telling it to loop from the standpoint of RGB exposures. This is something that some of us that don't really have very suitable conditions at home to do LRGB countered. If you're at a remote site, what you'd almost want to do is a nested sequence where you tell it to take, for example, 10 luminance frames, 10 and then 10 each of RGB, and then start over again.
Right. So you're pulling down all 4 channels.
Right. And if your tool already has that, then never mind this. But the reason I mentioned this, a lot of us use SGP, and that is not something that you can easily do in SGP. What you can do is for lack of a better word, build a sequence that has like 100 different events. So you have to manually, basically tell it 10 frames of L, 10 frames of R, 10, and then repeat that as another set of
right.
events. And it gets very cumbersome. And I thought I might mention this because for whatever reason, the folks that have done SGP, and I will tell you that I am way behind on releases, so maybe they've done this, but it is useful under those circumstances, particularly with a monochrome camera at a remote site where you think you might have clouds ruin your night 3 hours in, to make sure that you get some data on all 4 channels.
Right.
And so having a nested sequence is extremely useful. So I thought I'd mention it as a suggestion.
No, you can do that here already.
Right.
Yeah, you can. In fact, I can. So down here, so I got my targeting imaging instructions area down here in my instructions, and I've got 3 filters: HA, O3, and S2. All right. So now let me get rid of this mechanical thing here. So do you see that clearly? I've got these collapsed areas here of exposures, right? And so if I, what I can do is, whoops, let me move this zoom window out of the way here so I can take a sequential instruction set. And I can drop it in right here, and it can have its own triggers and loop conditions and instructions. But what I'll do is move my HA, my O3, and my S2 into there, and then I'll edit each to say I'll move the dithering, I'll move the dithering up to this level. I'll move the condition up to this level. So these now govern the entire things. And let me just get rid of these guys here. I'm probably doing this the worst possible way because I should have just made these from fresh, but I'm just working with what I already have here. So let me just kill those off, and now I've got a loop now. So what I'll do is say each one of these is a take exposure function. So what will happen is that right now this will take 1 exposure, FHA, switch the filter to O3, and then take 1 exposure, and then switch the filter to, I have it marked as empty here. This is an old profile. I have since grown an S2 filter, but pretend that empty is S2. And so it'll constantly cycle through these 1 image at a time.
So is it possible to tell it to take 10 images of
yes.
HA, 10 of O3, and
right.
10 of S2?
So you've got, so note the name of this, take exposure, take a exposure, right? But if we go over here to the camera section, we can say,
gotcha.
I don't want to do that. I want to take many exposures.
Well, you probably sold me just with this demonstration to try this out, because trying to do that in SGP is ugly.
Oh, gotcha. Well, here you say, I want to take 10 exposures at, I don't know, what, 300 seconds each, whatever gain, offset, and bend level. So what it'll do is, so let me copy this, copy it, and then move it down here, get rid of the old one, which is just, we don't need that anymore. And then let me do a copy of that. Whoops. Zoom does weird things for remote desktop. Things get kind of sticky. And then let me delete that because, whoops, we don't need that. Okay, so now I'm taking, yeah, so now I have what you want. I'm doing this loop. I'm doing 10 exposures of HA, then dropping down and doing 10 exposures of O3, and dropping down and doing 10 exposures of S2. Repeat until whatever parameters I say stop repeating, and it breaks the loop.
Gotcha. Excellent.
Thanks for that demo. That's, yeah, I mean, that's just a small part of what you can do. It's it is a little overwhelming. It probably take a night or two to play with, but there are some kind of built-in templates to sort of build these scripts for you for simple cases. So
Right, right, and even over here you have we have the templates here. Like I have an LRGB template and a narrowband target template and stuff like that. And these are the templates that I can pick out of the framing assistant when I want to load up a target. I also have this tab over here. There's a third tab for targets. Excuse me, and so if I want to image the Pac-Man Nebula, right? I just come in, drop it in like this, and this is the saved sequence from before, and so it's all there. I can just press go, or I can twiddle with some of the parameters and say go ahead with it. So I can start my night out imaging Pac-Man Nebula, and then when that's done, I can go do my first panel of M42. And when that's all done, it'll go through these in-game instructions here. And you might notice that up here, there's 3 types of instruction sets up here on the upper right. Deep Sky Object, which is what these are here. These are Deep Sky Object containers. So they have that nice display there and stuff like that. But then there's a parallel and a sequential instruction set. And so, for example, my end game here is a parallel instruction set where all these instructions are fired off in parallel. And because it's like I want to set my my dew heater. I want to turn my dew heaters. I have a Pegasus Ultimate Power Box, and so I can set that its aggressiveness to off. I start warming my camera. No duration. Warm up as ambient dictates. Park the scope, and then set my dew heaters to 60% power, or value of 60, whatever the power box does, and it fires all those off in parallel. So so it's not waiting for one to finish, like for your scope to finish parking before it turns off the switches. It's starting it all in parallel, and this parallel block won't be considered finished until all of the stuff in it finishes. So obviously here, the thing that's going to take the longest is park the scope, because this mount has to move.
well, that is, thank you very much. I think I think we're probably at a good transition point.
Okay, I'm sorry if I'm.
No. I mean, if we do workshops on Saturdays, and we have plenty of time. So if you ever want, you want to ever go have a full course on N.I.N.A, we might set up a series there. But this is great, and I think I've been talking about it some, and I think people have kind of thought, well, that's Mike and his funny software over there. But I think you've really given everyone a good demo of just some of the things you can do with this newer version. And I want to say for everyone, thank you very much. And
thank you very much, Dale.
I love doing this. Yeah, I love doing this and meeting up with people. So you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. It's amazing to wake up and smell the 2000s. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Says the man that uses a coal-powered camera.
Diesel electric.
Diesel electric. That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Chris, do you want to try to do some images or something, or have any announcements, or?
Yeah, sure. I guess first thing before we go into the images, Ron Crouch has a workshop coming up about combining RGB images with narrowband H alpha. Ron, did you just want to give a rundown of that or anything? It'll be this workshop will be this Saturday. Is that at 2:00? Did I get that right, Ron? That's what it usually is.
Yeah, it's 2:00 Eastern. Let me see. I sent something later on today, and let me see what I said. Anyway, what I'm going to do is sort of give an overview of Rgblh and why you might want to use it, what are the potential problems, and a couple of scenarios of use. One's a real simple no-brainer one. I got a nebula. I just want to put the H alpha in there because the RGB shows nothing to speak of. SH2 224 is what I picked. And in that case, it's literally a 1-minute process to see how that works and to underlie principles. Then I'll go to a more challenging case, which is throwing H alpha into Bode's Nebula M81 and M82. Because if you just throw the H alpha in there, you have a great big hot mess. You just want to put what you want in there. And I point out, first off, for people new to PixInsight, how do you make a process icon? Why is it nice? And then I will process the whole image from soup to nuts, descending through the process icons in order of what's going to happen. And in that case, it's how do you get just what you want of the H alpha into there. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to gear it toward people who've never seen PixInsight before in their life, so that they get a general overview of what the language is like and how to use it without being overwhelming. And then for people that are fairly experienced, make them help people to think about things and maybe give me more ideas too.
Okay, very good. All right, so I guess finally we'll go around and see if anybody has any images. Go ahead and speak up if you have anything to show us.
Are you talking to me?
No, just everybody.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Does anybody out there have any images to show? Go ahead and speak up. Wow.
I know Naveen has one he wants to show us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. So I just got my EQ6R and Zenith Star 73, and then the clouds rolled in, but I got one night. So it's my fault, I guess.
So Naveen, you know the joke. Every new piece of astronomy equipment comes with a free box of clouds that are instantly released as soon as you open the box.
Yep, I got them in droves this time. All right. So I think I'm not sure what just happened. Zoom moved all over the place. All right. So I hit M45 because I could, and it went behind a tree. This is only like 42 minutes, but it's my latest processing. I'm trying out PixInsight. I'm new to it. Every time I touch it, I learn something new and do something either horribly wrong or better. So it's been a pretty cool process going through it. And I got M51 Whirlpool, 2.5 hours shot over my neighbor's house, over I think the brightest part of the night sky here of my neighborhood. But I'm going back for another pass to process this going right now and doing a lot of things wrong. But hoping to see if I can clean up something a bit better. My first go at this was through Deep Sky Stacker and Affinity Photo, which was less than spectacular, but I'm pretty happy with how it's progressing. I want more.
Well, just remind everyone, it was what, about a month and a half ago, you had not ever imaged, and you were using a barn door that you had constructed yourself. So you're shooting along quite quickly on that progression.
I can show you what my barn door. I don't know if I have Pleiades still. Hold on. Tend to move on. Yeah, so I grabbed. This is with the barn door. So Mars and M45. So it's a bit of a progression there with just the equipment and getting.
Oh, you're making amazing progress. It's really amazing. It's cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
It's kind of, I think it rubs off on everyone to see someone new come in and the club and just sort of that you remember what it was like when you were taking those first images. It's cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, anybody else?
I'll show what I'm thinking, what I'm trying to do now. Hold on. Let me see what I can do. Okay, you should see a PixInsight screen.
Not yet.
Nope.
Not yet. Oh, I better hit the share button, huh?
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Well, what's on top here is a really nice little galaxy. It's NGC 2683,
That's it.
and I did it a couple of years ago with a 120 millimeter. And what I really want to try to do is it's retreating to the west pretty fast now. But what the goal is to while it's doing that, let's see if this will let me do what I want to do. I want to frame it. The blue frame there is in Aladdin. Is that in the 120 millimeter, and the red is in the 8-inch Newtonian. I'm going to try to get some luminance with the 8-inch Newtonium and combine them to build more. That's one thing I'm trying to do right now. The other thing I'm hoping to do is, let me go real quick here. This is the triplet, of course, and that was done long ago. But over here in the left-hand side is the Hamburger Nebula. And if you look at it really closely, this was about 85-minute subs with a old 8300 ship camera. There's some galaxy tidal jets that come out of this thing from collisions in the dark past. So really what I'm wanting to do is to put this into the 8-inch, and there it is framed in the 8-inch with the test frames I did the other day. That's 24 2-minute subs on it, and you can already begin to see what's there. I'm going to try to go really deep with the 8-inch on that same area and try to really show those tidal jets as well as I possibly can. This one's early in the sky, so it ought to have time. Of course, this is what I'm going to talk about Saturday. It's that image and how to get the funny little red jets and stuff in there. I hit this, as Roland says, I hit it with the garish stick a little bit. And the last one is one, Michael posted a really great image this week on NGC 2841, the tiger's eye that he did with the venerable C8. And this was a 120 millimeter refractor version of the same thing. So those are kind of what I've been working on the last month, I guess. Yeah.
Not bad considering your state lost power for half of it, right? So
Telescopes run on batteries. You don't need them.
Well, actually, the power, I'm all set up for that. I've got a little generator that's hooked to a propane tank, and I'm itching for the power to go out and all the lights to go off everywhere, and it be a clear night. I'll go out there and pull the cord on that generator, and I'll be set.
Okay, well, I guess since there's nobody else, we'll adjourn things for tonight. Dale,
Yeah.
thank you again for coming, and
Yep.
yeah, feel free if you want to take us up on it and do a workshop for us sometime. Just let us know, and yeah, we'll definitely work you in.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. I haven't done a workshop on N.I.N.A before. Just kind of a typical kind of show and tell stuff. But yeah, I think maybe a workshop would be a cool idea to work on. Yeah. So, thanks.
Thanks again.
I'm really excited about it. I think it's beautiful stuff.
Well, hopefully, give it a shot and see if it works out for you, and
Yeah.
and let us know. Let us know how you like it. Appreciate
Thank you again, Dale.
Yeah, you're
Thanks,
welcome.
man.
Good meeting all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
I'm a Tar Heel originally, so it's
oh, wow.
born on Fort Bragg, so it's
Right.
kind of in me. So anyway, take care.
You guys take care. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Not at all.